Hey everyone, how you doing this morning? And let me take care of some housekeeping here first. I forgot to turn the light on here. All right, and let's see who else in here. First in this morning was Phelan Klein Wolf, followed by Troop 1351. Then about a half hour later, Crew 1351 came in. Howie at Food Forest Permaculture is in here. And everyone's just chit-chatting back and forth. All right, so let me go over to the side here and remove this other thing out of the way and get the dock up. There we go. And move this out of the way down here and get me moving up over here. There we go. All right, so we're starting chapter 3 today, the weddings. And let me take out the highlights here. So, what the heck happened? What the heck did that? I wonder what that, why is it stupid new crap of Microsoft's fouled up, quote, improvements on what was a good program, putting stupid things in, and when you touch it in the wrong spot, see like this. Okay. Interesting. Huh. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at this and just seeing what the heck it does. What the interesting. Okay, it's dropping it down to the next one. Okay, it's just a little thing that it does. I'm just figuring out some of the new stupid things that it doesn't need to do. All righty, let's go ahead and start off on it. Chapter 13, Saturday, the weddings. October 31st, 2037, 10th full day of the passing. Walt looked at himself in the mirror and shook his head. He knew Sarah would like the way he looked in the tuxedo, but it wasn't his style. He would rather have been in a nice Western shirt with one of Uncle Dan's dress Western coats, string ties, new pair of Levi's, and Tony Lama boots. At least his parents relented on the Tony Lama boots. He was glad that he had stocked up on them with a half dozen that were dress boots and 2 dozen work boots. Sarah had gotten in a mild argument with her mom. She had said that she wanted to wear her all black gunslinger outfit. Carol went ballistic instantly. Sarah had been just goofing around, but decided to poke fun at her mom and added she wanted to wear bright red garters. She wanted bright red garters to wear over her black pants. On one leg, over get my tongue tighter. Over her bright red pants. I'm sorry, her bright. If I can talk here, bright red garters to wear over the black pants on one leg, and 2 on the sleeves of the shirt. Carol finally realized that Sarah was pulling her chain when Sarah said she would wear the shirt unbuttoned all the way down and parted 3 inches. Carol told Sarah to stop. Carol told Sarah to stop teasing her, or she would dump a bucket of ice water on her. On her. There we go. And just checking the chat. Let me see if anybody else has come in yet. All right. Walt laughed so hard when he heard that I wanted. Where did it? Yeah, Walt laughed so hard when he heard that he started to tear up. Later, he told Sarah she could wear that anytime she wanted, just so long as no one else was around to see her. Sarah told him that she would wear it for him tonight, then added, any other night that he wanted, and any other night. Walt tugged at the stiff collar of the dress white shirt that came with the tuxedo. The rental shop was one of the businesses in town that was totally unaffected by the earthquakes or meteors. He tugged at the white collar again. It itched something fierce, and Walt didn't understand how his dad had worn these to business, to all the business and faculty meetings that his parents went to over the years. Walt preferred soft, 100% cotton shirts without starch in them. He even ordered his uniform shirts in cotton. Still, Walt had to admit he did look pretty good in a tuxedo. He stroked his goatee and mustache. Suddenly, he was very interested to see what Sarah would look like in her wedding gown. Just then, Mark stuck his head in the door. Time for you to get out there. Sarah was giddy, nervous, and downright scared all at the same time as her mom and Danny helped her get ready. She was afraid she'd mess up the ceremony somehow and embarrass Walt. She wasn't happy that she couldn't spend the previous night with Walt, but Danny and her mom insisted she needed to get her hair done up, get a manicure, pedicure, and if Walt was around, he would just be in the way. Besides, she did kind of like the pampering. Pulled out bottles of perfume. She laid down the law: no perfume or cologne to be worn by anyone in the wedding party, or they'd find themselves outside during the ceremony and the reception, period. When they asked why, she told them that Walt is allergic to them, and after 2 years of not wearing any herself, she found that she didn't like the smell of most of them anyways. Danny slipped out to spread the word that everyone was not to wear any type of perfume or cologne or use any. That's a little late for that, but yeah. Or STU stuff. A little late for that, but yeah, she should, No, hang on a minute. Let me do this. Let me undo that. That night, this was the night before. That's right. Or in the morning. Yeah. That was the night before. Yes. Michael got on the radio to the mine, Bear Cave, and the sheriff's office in Indian Valley. The latter two, he had him start spreading the word. Only he got it wrong on who was allergic to them. Later, Sarah would thank Michael for his mistake, saying it was probably better for everyone not to know that Walt was allergic to them. When it was about 15 minutes before the ceremony, Don came in and told Carol and Danny to go take their places. When they started to object, Don told them that she would stay with Sarah until it was time for her to go stand with her father. And she would take her place as maid of honor. As soon as Don and Sarah were alone, Don pulled out a bundle wrapped in a small towel. At first, Danny was hang on, I may need to change the order here. Okay, I need to put this up there. There we go. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm typing on things, I get things. I just start typing things, as I'm thinking about them. I don't put them in the right order. So at first, Danny was surprised when Sarah asked her to be matron of honor. Then she realized it's because she was already married. Then Sarah told her she was going to ask Don to be maid of honor. Danny was confused and taken back until Sarah told her what she and Don had talked about at Bear Cave, and then at the mine in Walt's truck. Danny promised never to tell anyone. It was about 15 minutes before the ceremony. Don came in and told Carol and Danny to go take their places. When they started to eject, Don told him that she would stay with Sarah until it was time for her to go stand with her father. Then she would take her place as maid of honor. As soon as Don and Sarah were alone, Don pulled out a bundle wrapped in a small towel. Benny and Walina said to give this to you when no one was around, Don explained as she set the bundle on the bed and unrolled it. Ooh, Sarah said when she saw what was in the towel. Those are really nice. You're the only woman I know that wants to be wearing a pair of pistols when they got married, Don said. It's kind of fitting that you brought this to me. Why? These are Ruger Super Red Hawks. Sarah smiled broadly at Don, who broke out in a big grin as well. Don't tell anyone, but Don has my 2 Glock G29 FSFs in the back of his cummerbund, Sarah added. Are you expecting trouble? Don asked, getting rather nervous. Just the new way of the world, Sarah said flatly. Hey, even the Idaho Rangers and Venture crew are armed. Wow, I'd hate to be the idiot that tries crashing your wedding. Chris has a couple of Humvees with 50 caliber machine guns on them down by the gate. And the SEALs and Marine 4th Forcon are on patrol in Overwatch. Overwatch, Don asked, not sure what that was. Fixed concealed shooting positions, Sarah answered as she secured the thigh holster to her garter belt and then slid the stainless steel Ruger Super Red Hawk 10mm revolvers into their holsters. Why? The vice president is going to officiate at our wedding. Dawn stepped back with her mouth hanging open. Hey, it's not that big of a deal. Walt's dad officiated at his swearing in as VP, Sarah said. Maybe not to you, Don protested, but to the rest of us mortals, it's a big deal. Don, look at it this way. Come next April, we may be in the top 5% of what was the population of the country. And you look at what the survivors have, this county will be number one, will be the number one place to live, food, economically, and safety-wise. Chris showed me the numbers. Walt requested 20 times what any other county in Idaho or most other states did, and he got it. That was not counting what Chris had in place as a COOP fallback facility. A what? COOP. It means continuity of operations plan. That's what the governments and businesses have in place so they can continue operating after disaster, Sarah explained. Sounds like they need it from what you briefed the council about. More than you know. Hang on. My neck's kinking. Oh, all right. That's another reason the VP is here. The coop facility here is in the best shape of all except one. How do you keep all this straight? Federal things, state things, county things. I get a headache just listening to you rattle it off, Don inquired. I've spent years learning some of it through the Scouts and Venture crew, helping some of the crew who are also doing their regular Boy Scouts with all the merit badges for citizenship, emergency preparedness, fire safety, and such. Keeping up with Walt at first was motivated out of fear, but love was in there too. Yeah, your hidden love, sort of like mine, Don said with a bit of regret. Yeah, Sarah sighed in agreement. I never thought that I would want plural marriage to be legal. Me neither, Don sighed. Then she pulled herself up straight. Now, walk around, and I want to see if I can tell you where. I want to see if I can tell that you have pistols. Sarah walked back and forth, then spun a few times and finally jumped in place a couple times. They feel secure, she said. I couldn't tell you were wearing them. Good. It's about time. Will you check to see if they're ready for me? Okay, but just keep breathing. I don't want to see you pass out. Technically, we're already married. This is just for the family. If you say so, I'll be right back. Walt and Sarah looked at each other, rings on their fingers. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss the love of your life, Vice President Matt Mitchell said with a big smile on his face. Walt picked Sarah up and spun her around while kissing her. The room broke out into cheers, and the room broke out into cheers. The Venture crew and the Idaho Rangers started making their way to the center aisle between the chairs, rapping the butts of their rifles on the floor twice and chanting, "Woo wah Walt." 2 more raps, "Woo wah Sarah." They repeated the chant over and over until they were all lined up on either side of the aisle. Then Captain Sammy Harris shouted, "Idaho Rangers, present." Danny Elmore shouted, "Venture crew, present." And Danny and Sammy and Danny said, place their Henry rifles over the center aisle just like the military does with swords. Walt and Sarah then began walking down the aisle. As they passed the first pair of Idaho Rangers, they would pull their rifles to the shoulder arms position, take 1 step forward, turn, and follow Walt and Sarah. The second pair would follow the first pair, and the third follow the second, and the same for the fourth pair. Then the Venture crew did likewise, following the Rangers. All the while, Sal, Jesse, Agent Connie, and Agent Johnny Simpson were shooting the video with Bluetooth cameras, and one of the DHS office techs was manning the editing controls and feeding the wedding live to the DHS WebOC whiteboard site, where every functioning COOP site was displaying it for members of the president's cabinet and Congress. The president wanted them to see the man who helped save so many lives and that had just accepted the position of Chief U.S. Marshal. Chris and the tech had set up a 65-inch TV with a webcam at the back of the Grand Hall where Walt and Sarah were going to exit to the patio behind the house. As Walt and Sarah approached, Sal turned on the monitor and the president appeared. Walt and Sarah stopped a few feet from it. Mr. President, Walt spoke with a grin on his face. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Mr. and Mrs. Rogers. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. President, they said together. I want to thank you again for accepting the position of Chief Marshal. Walt nodded. It took a while for me to come to terms with the fact that it was the next step in being able to protect the country. Just a reminder, everybody, hydrate. And thank you for reorganizing the Marshal Service so I could accept the position. In any case, I'm very happy you did, the President smiled, and I want to thank Special Agent in Charge Davies for broadcasting your wedding on WebEOC so all Congress could watch. I want to let you know that your father's recommendation to Vice President Mitchell has been approved. Walt and Sarah looked confused at the president, then at each other, then at Chris, and then back to the president. What recommendation was that, sir? The Ninth Circuit Court was all at one of the rehab towns that was flooded out. It was confirmed several days ago that the entire court perished because of it. Your father recommended Dewey Johnson to be the first replacement for the court, and the Senate had approved him this morning. You now have a court to bring your cases to. That's my wedding present to you. Thank you, sir. Do you want to inform Dewey, or should I do it? Is he there? Well, I would like to have a few words with him if you don't mind. Not all, sir. Let me get him for you. Walt sped away. Mr. President, Sarah spoke as soon as Walt was out of earshot. I'm going to accept the offer as Deputy U.S. Marshal as well. I told Walt I'd have to think about it, but now that you've appointed Dewey Johnson to the court here, I feel better about accepting it. I'm glad to have you with the Marshals. I look forward to reports of you and your husband's progress in restoring law and order to our country. I look forward to the time we will not have to make any reports. But until then, I think you should see the new breed of law enforcement here in Idaho, the Idaho Rangers. Sarah stepped slightly to the side and gestured to the 8 Rangers behind her. They helped stop the biker gang I'm sure you were briefed on. Yes, I recognize the outfits from the videos, the president said, and then addressed the Rangers. Rangers, I'd like you to know that we at the federal level very much appreciate your help and future efforts in ridding the country of trash like he's going to use the name here. HEAV Evans, DEV Evans Devils. In fact, when you have secured Idaho, I'll ask Congress to grant the Idaho Rangers federal authority so you may continue to make the West safe for decent, hardworking people. Sammy stepped forward. Captain Sammy Rogers, Mr. President, on behalf of the Idaho Rangers, I would like to say thank you for your vote of confidence. We will strive to live up to it. The President smiled broadly. Captain, my confidence is just doubled. Enjoy the festivities. Sammy nodded and stepped back just as Walt walked over with Dewey Johnson. Mr. President, Dewey Johnson, Walt said for an introduction. Mr. Johnson, I'm authorizing President Mitchell to swear you in as Chief Justice of the Ninth Circuit Court. That is, if you'll accept the appointment. Dewey's mouth dropped open and worked up and down in silence for a couple seconds. Then he spoke. I am humbled, Mr. President. Of course, I'll accept the appointment. Good. As you find good, surviving, honest. Hang on. I want to make that a an accented word. As you find good and surviving honest judges and lawyers you feel would be a benefit to the country, please forward their names and information to me for consideration to fill out your court. Of course, Mr. President, Dewey replied. Walt, I have taken enough of your time on your wedding day. I have other duties to attend to. Congratulations, and we'll talk tomorrow, the president said. Thank you, Mr. President. Have a great day, Walt replied. And the president ended his connection, and Chris turned off the monitor in camera. Oh. Yeah, we got. Get the goop out of my eyes here. The fan below me for the furnace was just blowing up on me. I don't know if you could hear it or not. Walt turned to go out the door, and he noticed He noticed that most of the wedding guests staring at him, Sarah and Dewey. These guests had never seen Walt on the phone with the Secretary of Homeland Security, calling the Vice President by his first name. They hadn't heard the stories of the DHS conference calls and Walt taking them over. They hadn't heard how. Oh, hang on, shoot, man. Eyes are really itching here. Well, how heard the story, hadn't heard how many governors, big city mayors, and senators had called him for his opinion on prepping for the asteroid. This was their first time knowing how big the circles were that their Walt had been traveling in. What? Walt asked the group. No one answered. For several more seconds of silence, Walt almost shouted, "What?" Finally, someone responded, that was the president. He said all of Congress was watching your wedding. Chris spoke up. Walt has been meeting with governors, city mayors, senators, congressional representatives, members of the president's cabinet for almost a year, especially the Secretary of Homeland Security, who he has the private number for on speed dial. And the secretary has Walt on speed dial. And then as a response to Chris's comment, a phone rang and everybody turned to the sound. Mark Rogers was pulling a sat phone out of his pocket. He looked at it and said, Walt, it's William. That's the Secretary of Homeland Security, Walt smiled as a few more mouths dropped open. Walt took his sat phone from his dad and answered it. Yes, Mr. Secretary, what can I do for you today? Those standing close and close enough heard those standing close to Chief Marshal and report directly to the president. That puts us on even footing. Call me William. Walt made a sighing gesture, but not the sound. All right, William. Then Walt actually, hang on here. Then Walt actually sighed, but it feels funny saying it, and you should see the look my dad is giving me. Let me talk to him, Secretary Daniels said with a chuckle. Walt handed the phone to his dad, who took it without batting an eye. Yes, Mr. Secretary. Yes. Are you sure? I don't want him to I don't want him to get a swelled head. Of course, sir. You have a good day too. Mark handed the phone back to Walt. Okay, William, what's the news today? As he turned and walked quickly towards his office with Sarah hot on his heels and Chris right behind her. Mark turned to address everyone. Walt and Sarah have an urgent conference call with the Secretary of Homeland Security. They'll be back as soon as they can. Oh. I just lost it. Okay, back since okay. So William Daniels brought Professor Raymond Johansen on the call once Walt was in his office. Professor Johansen informed Walt that the moon was pulled closer to Earth by 42,000 miles, and that it is expected to set into somewhat stable orbit after about 9 months. The increased closeness caused the increased closeness will cause an increase in tidal height of about 3 to 4 feet average worldwide. But the point on Earth where the moon was the closest to its orbit, tides would be as much as 15 feet higher than normal because of before 15 feet higher than normal before. Hang on, let me reword. Let me look this. This thing's got tides could be as much as 15 higher. I'll take normal out of there. It should be as much as 15%, 15 feet higher than before the moon shifted. People at USGS are also expected to be an increase in earthquakes annually over pre-asteroid event. Getting tongue-tied here, folks. Sorry about that. Professor Johansen also let them know that they were concentrating so much on the arrival trajectory of the asteroid that they hadn't bothered to calculate where it would go afterwards. His team was now trying to retrieve all data they could find to map out where it would go and if it would return. As of now, it looks like it will pass close to Venus, but not that close. But not that close to Mercury. They will be keeping an eye on it, but it may get pulled into the sun at some point. He wasn't sure if any effect that would have for the Earth. Secretary of Homeland Security had some good news. The Army Corps of Engineers was working on putting a communications relay station on Grace Peak in Colorado at 14,278 feet. Change that to feet. It is the highest point on the Continental Divide and would increase communication capacity across the continental United States. After that one is operational, they will continue installing 3 more along high points of the Continental Divide. They will then install 3 along the ridgeline of the Appalachian Mountains. The entire project, as now laid out, is expected to be completed around June. There was other updates as well, more reports of large dam failures, heavy rainfalls in the Midwest, ash mudslides, wildfires, and evacuated areas that didn't get flooded. A hurricane passing along the East Coast only affected areas that had been hit by the tsunamis and radio contacts from other parts of the world. Hang on. Also radio contacts from other parts of the world, but nothing that was of great importance currently. 30 minutes later, Walt and Sarah came back out to the reception. As they left his office, Walt asked Sarah to remind him to send the county engineer to look at Brownlee Dam and the hydroelectric plant as soon as he can. As they walked into the general hall, they were besieged with questions from friends from town, while family members who were used to their conference calls stood back out of the way. Finally, Chris yelled, "Hey, people, stop with the questions. They are held to a non-disclosure agreement and cannot talk to you. So stop. You are not here for that. You are here for a wedding and reception." "Thanks, Chris," Walt said in somewhat of a loud voice to get the point across. Then Mark spoke up. "If everyone would proceed outside to the patio, then we can form the reception line. After which lunch will be served." Mary, hang on here. What's going on? Hang on a second. I'll be right back. Okay, so Eli is in one of his moods where he picks on his youngest brother. So my daughter's sending the youngest over, and he's going to stay here for about an hour. So she gets the rest of the boys ready to go to church, and then Eli and Oliver will swap. So in about an hour, I may have to wrap this up. And after they get back from church and all the boys are gone, I'll fire up an impromptu live to continue this on afterwards. All right, so let's get back to the editing here. Lunch will be after which lunch will be served, Mary Rogers added. As Walt walked by Chris spoke softly. "The president wasn't my idea." "I know," Walt answered. "You would have asked if it was okay if they hadn't told you to keep quiet about it." "Yeah, it's kind of hard to say no to the president." Chris shook his head as he followed out. "Not really. I did several times. I only said yes because Sarah asked me to." Chris hung open a little for a couple seconds before he spoke. "You only took the appointment because she asked you to?" "Well, yeah, well, hang on. Let me switch this around. I want to take this one from here, put it over there. Take this one from here. God, come on, you stupid thing. Fine, I'll do it this way. I'll put that one there. Take these two. Come on, dang it. And change this to a capital. Come on. Well, yeah, sort of. And I'm going to change this around now to 1, 2, 3. Sort of. Walt hemmed and hawed. I was thinking about what good I could do as head marshal, but I didn't want to have to report to someone hundreds of miles away who had 24 people pulling him this way or that way. I don't want to have to deal with Tuesday morning quarterbacks second guessing my actions. That's Monday morning quarterback. Not for Monday Night Football, Walt chuckled, which I didn't watch once, but I didn't watch but once in a blue moon, and not at all for the last couple of years. Sarah chimed in. I don't think he has watched much of any news. Has not watched anything but the news, and not much of that. The way the majority of the outlets have been twisting the facts. Walt said. Walt took his place in reception line, and when Benny and Willina got to him, he said, "We do need to talk before you two go home tonight." Okay, is this about the conference? Is this about the conference call? Was it bad? Not what was in the conference call. We need to see where things are. Have to see where things. We will have to see where things are going. We'll stick around. Hang on, they spelled it. There we go. Okay, and all right. 3 hours later, most of the guests from town had gone home. All the family members were still there, including Elizabeth Ward, who was trying hard to be nice and spent most of the time in the background observing. Also still there was Kathy and those from the Butterfields, the Smythes, the Mitchells, and several families from Redoubt Village, and Benny and Willina track from Cambridge. I gotta check something on here. Excuse me, go over to Against the Wind fact sheet. Control F, Willi and NA. Yep, Track is their last name. I did give them the last name of Track. Okay, just wanted to make sure. And that is why I have this spreadsheet with everybody's information on it. And this one is not supposed to be, this is not supposed to be that wide. There we go. And drop it down. Okay. And Benny and Juliana from as the last of the families from Redoubt Village says their goodbye, Benny and Willina walked up to Walt and Sarah carrying two large boxes. We didn't feel right giving you these until those outside of your inner circle had left, Benny said, especially with what we have for Sarah. Willina added. Everyone gave him inquisitive looks. And what unique sneakiness do you have for us? Walt asked. I need to take Sarah someplace where she can change. Willina said. And you can try yours on right here, Benny added. Follow me, Sarah said as she headed towards the stairs. Willina smiled and followed her with the box. Benny set the box that he was carrying down on a couple of chairs. Several years ago, I invested in a special 3D printer and carbon fiber compression mold. The idea was to make custom fit body armor for the military, MILLITAR, for the military. Expanding on the dragon scale principle, we made body armor with titanium tiles instead of ceramic tiles. He started opening the box. I heard about that body armor. The procurement department didn't like it because they couldn't have anything to do with because they didn't have anything to do with development, Kurt said. Yeah, well, it's still popular with the troops, and we had a hard time keeping up with orders. However, we did learn a lot about what we can do with body armor. He then pulled out an ultralight hang on, I need to explain this a little bit more here. This is getting real hard to make it sound right going through it. I'm just going through several different things in my mind here, trying to work it out here because it needs better explanation. All right, we're going to do something here. Upper body. He then pulled out an upper body piece of ultralight body armor in khaki color that matched the sheriff's department's uniforms. Yeah, that I think is a little bit better explanation and flows better too off the tongue. It has 2 layers of concave, convex titanium scales and carbon fiber carriers with a ballistic nylon exterior and removable cotton backer. The sides are 5 inches of overlapping single scales for double layer protection all around. It can stop a 45-70 at 20 feet and weighs less than half of most comparable body armor. Then he handed it to Walt. Wow, this is light. or that is light. Oh, no, this is light. This is light, Walt said in amazement as he slipped it over his dress shirt, having shed the tuxedo jacket hours ago. Next time you have to go up against heavily armed brigands, you'll have a better chance of surviving anything they will be throwing at you. Scales. We print them on a 3D printer, Benny said flatly. Wait a minute, you can't print metal on a 3D printer, Michael spoke up. Sure you can, Mick interjected. It takes a very special printer. That's right, Benny confirmed. The EOS M400-4 is a 3D titanium printer. I got the idea from that TV show where the special effect guys build stuff. He built a titanium flying suit of armor like from the movies. Thomas spoke up. That was one of those two guys that busted the myths and such. I saw that show. They even shot bullets at it, and it didn't even dent it. That is why I got the printer and started making the vests. They are expensive, but well worth it. How much did this set you back? Walt asked suspiciously. Not much, really, Benny grinned. Walt tilted his head and gave Benny a questioning stare. I got a contract to retrieve 12 units in California at the start of the evacuation. All 12 were turned over to the company in Reno, Benny said. Then he grimaced slightly. Shortly thereafter, I heard one of the trucks that had 3 printers in it and 3 tons of titanium powder came up missing during a riot. I tracked it down and contacted the company that hired me to retrieve it and asked them if there was a reward for recovering them. They told me they found out the printers were destroyed in the riots. And Stan asked, and I deduced that the thieves made it look like the printers were destroyed, so no one would come looking for them. I retrieved them anyways, just to keep them out of the hands of the criminal elements. So your vest came from the recovered materials. All right, I think I got a boy just came in. I need to go talk to them for a moment. So I'll be right back. Yeah. Okay. It was yeah, Oliver's here now, and he said he wanted a hot dog to eat, so I nuked him a hot dog. He's watching Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah. All right. So where were we here? So your vest came from the recovered materials. Walt just started laughing and shook his head. What happened to the thieves? Stan asked suspiciously. It seems that they were stealing a lot of stuff. The police and FBI showed up soon after I recovered the printers and titanium. The thieves tried to shoot their way free and failed. Uh, Benny said with an almost convincing look of sadness. Everyone, everyone just stared at Benny. Anyways, I would like to donate a printer and 1,000 pounds of titanium powder to the cause. Uh, Benny said, looking at Walt. Walt looked hard at Benny for several seconds. How about 2 printers, 2,000 pounds, and you take a part-time job? Doing what? I need someone to run the printers. Walt smiled. Just then, Willana came down the Willina came down, came back to the grand hall. Everyone, she said loudly, may I have your attention? When everyone was quiet, looking at her, she said, I give you the new and improved lightning death. Sarah strolled around the corner. She was wearing her all black gunslinger outfit and black scarf around her neck, covering the lower portion of her face. Wait a minute. I'm thinking it. Okay, yeah, black scarf. At one point, she changes to a red scarf, but this is still the black scarf. Black scarf around her neck, covering the lower portion of her face. Her head was tilted forward so the brim of her Stetson covered the rest of her face. She'd taken 4 steps before Danny noticed her hands. She was not wearing her normal black gloves. Look at her hands, Danny exclaimed. They're skeleton hands. Everyone gasped as they saw that her hands did indeed look like skeleton hands. In reality, they were black gloves with titanium bones attached in such a way that she still had full movement of her whole hand. Sarah continued to walk toward them, and when she was about 5 feet away, she lifted her head up and the scarf dropped from her face, showing a metallic skull face. She gave a maniacal laugh. Everyone except Walt stepped back away from her, and a couple started reaching for their weapons when Walt spoke. That is so hot. Everyone, including Sarah, froze. Then Walt turned to Benny. Is that titanium too? Yes, it is. With a light density foam padding molded to match her face. The skull has multiple parts that are connected as one unit. As you see when she opens her mouth, so does the skull. There's a continuation plate of titanium that is part of the upper piece and slides behind the teeth and jaw of the lower. This hides her mouth and provides protection even when she's talking. The scarf hides the neck extension that covers most of her throat and jaw as a single hinge extension plate. And the jaw has a single extension. It has a hinge extension plate that extends over the chest plate, the chest extension. Even when she is looking up, her throat. I painted the upper extension plate black and the hinged jaw extension with an outline of black to make it look like it has vertebrae, like it is the vertebrae of the neck. Damn, that is so cool, Chris said as he stepped closer, tilting his head to get a better look. The whole thing is bulletproof? Well, probably won't stop at 50 cal if she gets hit by one. It would probably break her neck anyways. A 308, Chris continued. It should stop a direct hit, but still, it will still mess her up from the impact. The eyes, that is a special. That's something special. A friend of Bernie's came up with a couple years ago, before his company locked down the research on it. Wallina answered. What is it? Transparent titanium with electronic auto shading on the inside, Benny said. I had heard a high-speed electronic auto shading shooter's glasses that was supposed to be issued next year to our snipers, but the transparent titanium wasn't developed yet. There were problems in the manufacturing processes in the labs. That was part of the lockdown. My friend figured it out 18 months ago, but didn't tell anyone. He was perfecting the process and working on incorporating the two together. I had the idea for a skull helmet and told him about it. He came to see me with 8 pairs of lenses. They're 1 inch thick, and currently there are only two helmets. Sarah's is the most advanced as it mimics her facial bone structure and can have a latex mask of her face put over it. Like in the Mission Impossible movies, Dave asked quickly. More like Red Skull in Captain America, Wallina corrected. Sarah is currently wearing only the front half of the full helmet. With the back half attached, it'll look like a metal skull. The latex mask comes 2 ways. Half head, which her real hair will be used to cover the edges of the skull and mask, and whole head with a wig that goes over the back of the full helmet. Now her vest is triple layer on the front and has Velcro sleeves that are single layer, Benny added. Walt coughed. Sorry, but why exactly? If she's going to be facing down killers like she did last week, then she's going to need every edge she can get. If she gets hit and stays standing, someone's going to have the wherewithal to take a shot at her head. If the bullet bounces off and takes a chunk of latex and there's no blood, it's going to freak them out. Then when she pulls off the remaining mask, they should shit bricks and run run screaming like pansies. Agreed. But how about getting her upgraded revolver? Say something along the lines of Ruger or Smith & Wesson's 8-shot 357s. The barrel on the Smith & Wesson is too short, Sarah replied. I like 8-inch barrels for better accuracy. You seem to do all right with the 4-inch barrels in the Glock, Benny said. Ha! Sarah chortled sarcastically. I nearly missed half my shots. I did miss some, but they hit the biker behind them. Both Walt and Kathy went weak-kneed and nearly fell down with that admission. I can get you some 9-inch Lone Wolf barrels for them, Wallina said. Sarah spun around to her, pulling the mask off her face. You want me to kiss you now, later, or both? Well, Walina busted up laughing. I don't think that would make our husbands too happy. Sarah's mom moved over to Walina. Hi, I'm Sarah's mom, Carol. I want to thank you for trying to protect my daughter with such expensive gifts. She gave Walt. Benny then turned to Walt. What do we need to talk about? Walt glanced around and everybody in the room looked at Benny. What other specialty toys do you have or can still get that I might want or need to get? I might be able to get hold of a case or three of M109s. Benny glanced at Chris, who was trying to stifle a laugh, and several cases of varying types of ammunition. Don't worry about it, Benny said, shaking his hand. If you can get it, do it. It's all good. Okay, but what's so funny? Chris held up a finger as his laughing increased as he fought to control it. Finally, he gasped out and pointed to Sarah. Metal skull, metal bones and hands. Fighting to keep his snickering under control. Carries a big ass gun. Who's that remind you of? Sarah quickly put her skull helmet back on and said, I'll be back, in her best Arnold imitation. That ought to make them crap their pants, Danny said. Even Carol laughed at that. November 1st. An image of the presidential seal appeared when the streaming banner across the bottom. An image of the presidential seal appeared when the streaming banner across the bottom. With the streaming banner across the bottom. This is a national broadcast via all VHS television channels, most AM FM radio channels, and most ham radio call channels. This broadcast will begin shortly, and it repeated. A countdown clock was going in the upper left-hand corner. When the countdown timer reached 0, the image changed and a man appeared at a podium in front of the DHS seal. The banner, a banner appeared reading, William Daniels, Secretary of Homeland Security. Secretary Daniel cleared his throat and began. Hang on, something doesn't. I'm looking at it. Something just doesn't make sense in the first sentence here. Let me see if I can get it figured out here. Yeah, I need to change this up and just eliminate that because that was already mentioned up above in the banner part. Okay. And on November 1st, the president issued Presidential Security Directive AR-003, which states members of the motorcycle club / gang known as Heaven's Devils are no longer citizens of the United States of America and have no rights to due process. Furthermore, they are to be considered enemy combatants and treated as such. In addition, the Geneva Convention does not apply to them. They are to be killed on sight unless there is a need and likelihood that information, hang on, let me do that one, and likelihood that information can be extracted from them. Afterwards, they are to be executed. The United States military are to aid all local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in exterminating Heaven's Devils from American soil. This directive has been approved by Congress and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. By the U.S. Supreme Court. He looked up the camera. We have discovered the plan of Heaven's Devils, and it is so hideous that all branches of the government agreed this action had to be taken. The president has asked me to thank those remarkable citizens who brought this plan to light. First off, it's Sheriff Walt Rogers, a person known to the American natives as Lightning Death. Yesterday, Walt resigned as sheriff of Adams County, Idaho, and accepted the position of Chief Marshals. Also, after the wedding yesterday, Lightning Death has accepted position as Deputy Federal Marshal. The president would also like to thank the two individuals whose videos have inspired many people to get prepared. Juby Chen, the Ninja Girl, and Archer, the Super Scout, whose team has discovered the true extent of the insidious plan of Heaven's Devils. He paused for a moment before continuing. I would like to add my personal thanks, Kimberly, Michael, Eleanor, and the rest of your team. You have done a great job. Kimberly and Michael are now captains in the U.S. Marine Corps, 3rd Forcon, and are in command of its Special Operations Group, the Reapers. Again, thank you, Walt, Lightning, Kimberly, Michael, and Eleanor, for all you've done and are still doing. Good afternoon, everyone. The broadcast ended. Walt looked over at Chris. Is that your doing concerning Sarah's name? Sarah requested it, Chris said. She wants to have some anonymity for afterwards for being a mom. Walt nodded. She deserves that for sure. About that other thing you asked about, Chris hesitated for a moment. There is a Navy doctor that is on a medical ship in the Antarctic that specializes in that. The ship is scheduled to return to the U.S. in April. In April to the East Coast. That's all I could find out with raising flags. Thank you, Walt. Side. November 3rd, 13th day after passing. Joseph Donaldson called Walt to inform him that he had received word that 2 light platoons and an engineering company would be arriving the next day. He was hoping that Walt, Chris, and Sammy, and maybe Sarah could give them a joint agency talk, including county plans. Sarah told Walt that Kathy had lined up a couple sniper instructors to train her and Danny on their Barrett M107s A1s, so they would be staying down. Be staying down at Toon Tavern for a week to 10 days, depending on how well they do, and on the weather conditions. If a storm rolled in, they might double that. Walt wasn't happy about her being away for so long. He never realized how much he hated sleeping alone now. Sarah saw the crinkled brow and realized what he was thinking. and said that she would come back any night she could. Walt had let her go with him once. Walt had her. Hang on. 193. Let me see how far I've gone so far. 193. That's 15 pages. Okay. Walt had her go with him to one of the supply barns. Inside a truck, tucked behind a couple of cargo containers, was a vehicle covered with a lightweight tarp. He pulled it off and Sarah's jaws dropped. I hope you like it. That's for me? Hang on, let me put the question mark in it. She asked in shock as she stared at the multi-cam painted F450 crew cab pickup with a cab level shell. I got it last year. It has a bunch of special features on it. Very special siren setup. He smiled and added, "Who you want to call?" She squealed and launched herself at Walt. When Walt and Sammy were on a sat phone call with Idaho's governor, lieutenant governor, president pro tem of the Senate, and Speaker of the House, they asked them to mimic the presidential orders for law enforcement for dealing with criminals. They said that the Senate had been debating. Hang on, I'll put some clarification up here. State Senate Senate and the state state Speaker of the House. There we go. He asked them to mimic the presidential orders for law enforcement for dealing with criminals. They said the Senate had been debating doing just that for the past week. He also informed them that they also informed Walt that many areas of the city. Really clarify this. Just put Boise in there. Wait a minute. Area. Okay, hang on here. This should say autocorrect Boise. There we go. Particularly downtown, were a hotbed of looting and killings, while other areas were being secured by citizen militias, seizing neighborhoods and hanging looters and rapists. The National Guard, state police, and county sheriff and city police tried to maintain security for the Idaho government COOP facility and the nearby VA Medical Center complex and some of the neighborhoods nearby. The federal building and courthouse on the other side of the VA is being held by federal agents, federal employees, and their families. The National Guard held the perimeter, and law enforcement officers tried to patrol adjacent neighborhoods, organizing them to help with their areas. Legislature's families are currently being held in some of the empty VA buildings. A couple of the empty VA buildings. They believe they have enough food to last until the 1st of May. Their big problem is heat, with freezing temperatures already. What's what I'm putting in already happening. Not the word I wanted to use, but and some of the gas lines broken by earthquakes and not sure how they're going to survive. Walt suggests they start scrounging up propane tanks and camp stoves to cook on, not to run them for heat. Otherwise, they could get carbon monoxide poisoning. He made a point that they not burn any firewood or burn any wood fires indoors at all. They should also group together in inner rooms and sleep in shifts to take advantage of body heat. Gather unused mattresses. And bedding. Yes, Oliver, what do you need? I'm hungry again. I'll be in there in a minute, okay? Okay. That kid eats more than anybody else. And bedding for insulating those rooms. If they had tents to set them up for sleeping in group rooms. Putting bedding over the tent will trap heat so they sleep better. Also use mattresses in the tents to insulate from the cold floors. You remind them they should not give out any of their supplies or they would be overrun by hungry families. They could barter food for other things but always to get fair value for the food, such as several cans of food for a full propane tank. Never food for free. Food from the hang on. Food from the National Supply Warehouse was different, but never distribute from there. Always use National Guard trucks to distribute food at a different location each time. Never head back to the supply warehouse. Never distribute daily, and change the number of times the number of days in. Never distribute daily, and change up the number of days in between distributions. People try to follow the truck back to the warehouse so they can rate it. They agreed and said they were doing that now after a city warehouse got overrun when the city tried to distribute food from it. Walt also reminded them to have a dozen or so armed officers with the National Guard truck to keep it from getting overrun. Kathy was working with Danny Rourke Ahern, and Master Sergeant Russell was working with Sarah with their Barrett M107A1s. Danny, who had gone hunting with her father a lot, was much better with the rifle. After Sarah had shot the 5-round magazine, she sighed and put her head down on the rifle and said, "Master Sergeant Russell, I think I need to start off with something a bit lighter, like half the size." Master Sergeant Russell chuckled. "I think you're right. I have a 25 caliber Creedmoor and a 6.5 Creedmoor in the camo rifle case," Danny said. I'd start with the 25, less recoil." A couple seconds later, she fired her rifle and cussed. "Shit, I think we should have gotten the Barrett M99 in 416 instead of 50. "Permission to clean and put away my rifle, Master Sergeant," Sarah said with disappointment in her voice. "Permission granted. Then get the 25 Creedmoor. We'll try that out." All right. So actually, let me go. I'm going to finish this next one quick, and then I'm going to take a break. We'll come back after lunch, Mountain Time, probably about 3 o'clock Eastern Time. I'll come back up and finish off some more of Chapter 3 here. November 4th, more news. Recorded audio message from Walt Rogers to the nation. Hello, I'm Walt Rogers, the former sheriff of Adams County, Idaho. I am the new chief marshal of the reorganized federal marshals. For those of you who have been dealing with, battling against, or otherwise contending with the motorcycle gang known as Heaven's Devils, this message is of importance to you. On November 1st, the President of the United States issued Presidential Security Directive AR-003, which states members of the motorcycle club / gang known as Heaven's Devils, due to their plan and actual acts of treason, are no longer citizens of the United States of America and have no right to due process. Furthermore, they are to be considered enemy combatants and killed on sight. Oh, sorry, I jumped the line. Enemy combatants and treated as such. In addition, the Geneva Convention does not apply to them. They are to be killed on sight unless there is need and likelihood that information can be extracted from them. Afterwards, they are to be executed. The President, the United States military are to aid all local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies in American soil. This directive has been approved by Congress and upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. If you've been having troubles dealing with other gangs, hang on, my eyes are just watering over again. I need to up this up here. If you have been having troubles with, okay, it sounds like Eli's coming over. All right, I'm going to have to, all right, that's other boys coming over. If you've been having trouble with Heaven's Devils, H-E-A-V-E, Heaven's, D-E-V, Heaven's Devils, or other gangs, we need to know so we can compile a list of their attacks, categorize their threat, and make appropriate response. 100 teams of federal marshals are being trained at the new Marine base, Ton Tavern here in Idaho. Yes, Oliver? I got a couple minutes. I'll be in there.
He's coming home.
Oh, he's going home? Okay. All right. Here in Idaho, and will soon be dispatched to eliminate these gangs. Currently, the Idaho Rangers are clearing the state of these gangs, and once that is done, they will move on to other states under federal mandate. DHS teams are also being trained to assist the federal marshals and the Idaho Rangers. Any former federal agent or other law enforcement officer whose agency or department has been decommissioned, who are looking to continue working in law enforcement, check with any still active agency for information on what positions are available. And for those wondering, the federal marshals are no longer under the Department of Justice. We enforce law the old West way, like Ahern, Porter Rockwell, and Bass Reeves. If you can do that, come to Idaho. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has been closed down, and all laws and rules They created unlawfully limiting the ownership of any firearm or accessory by law-abiding adult citizens have been canceled. New national age for buying, carrying, opened or concealed, a pistol has been set at now 16 years old. States can lower the ages but cannot set them higher. Now for rifles, the new minimum age to buy or carry a rifle is 14 years of age. And individual states can lower but not raise the age. Yeah. Let me change this up here. RAI. Cannot raise the age. And okay. Minimum age for law enforcement the minimum age to be a law enforcement officer is now 16, unless the city police chief or county sheriff feels the need to lower it for their agency or department. However, laws prohibiting possession of firearms by convicted felons are still active and enforced. Gang members in possession of firearms fall under the shoot on sight mandate. The president with Congress has changed the age to enlist in the military from 17 with high school diploma and the parents' permission to just 16 to just 16 and high school diploma, and added a second entry age of 14 or 15 with parents' permission. We will have more information to you soon. Thank you. Stay armed. Okay, so we're going to stop right here, and I'll come back, and then we're going to actually do writing for a couple of things here. All right. All right. Thank you for putting up with this, and I should be back hopefully by 3 o'clock, maybe a little bit sooner, depending on what goes on with the grandsons and my daughters in church. All right, everyone. Thanks for hang on, let me bring me back over here. Thanks for coming by and listening to this, and we will get back to you here in just a minute. A couple hours here. All right.